Thank you so much, Terrence, and thank you to our live audience here. Good evening. Welcome to the Green Space. I'm Elliott Forrest. Tonight we're giving you a season preview of upcoming concerts from some of New York's most treasured institutions. Our backstage is filled with artists ready to give you a taste of what you can see in New York this fall. We have musicians who will be performing at Carnegie Hall and the Met Opera and Lincoln Center, the Miller Theater, NJ and other venues in New York and New Jersey. And some of you may know this is a big year for Beethoven. 2020 marks the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth. I know he doesn't look a day over 200, but he does, and he looks great. So that's a perfect way to start us off for the Calidore Quartet. The Los Angeles Times has praised them for their balance of intellect and expression. I'll tell you more about them. We'll talk to them a little bit about their season, but first, welcome the Calidore String Quartet. The Calidores won numerous awards, including the 2018 Avery Fisher Career Grant, awarded to them right here in the Green Space. They were also awarded the Lincoln Center Emerging Artists Award. And speaking of Beethoven, they'll be performing complete cycles of Beethoven string quartets in concert throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. They'll be in New York on November 14th at the Rose Studio at Lincoln Center for a performance of Bartók and Dvorak. Right now, they're going to play the first movement from Beethoven's String Quartet as Opus 127, the Calidore String Quartet, live in the Green Space on WQXR. The Calidore String Quartet live on WQXR, music from Beethoven's Opus 127. Ryan, if you'll join me over here. We are live in the green space. It's a fall preview. We're going to get to know the string quartet a little bit better. So the 250th anniversary of Beethoven, you can do the full cycle of these string quartets. How do you prepare for that?
Well, it coincides also with our 10th anniversary of performing together as a quartet. And so it's a moment that we've dreamed of since basically the inception of our group, and we've been working steadily towards over the past decade. And it's kind of surreal. It's kind of like climbing Mount Everest for string quartet, and now we can finally see the summit. So it's a very exciting moment.
So just the genesis of how you got together. I'm always curious how these comes together. You're just like, hey, you want to join a band? How does it work?
Kind of. We all met in school. We all were students at the Colburn Conservatory of Music in Los Angeles. And we all arrived more or less around the same year, and we all became friends first and played in different groups together, and then eventually found our mutual love for string quartet, and here we are today.
We're going to hear a little more Beethoven in just a second, but first, when you do this full cycle, just maybe one or two ideas that you learn from doing such a deep dive of doing the full cycle.
Well, you have to stay very in shape, both mentally and physically, because it's almost 9 hours or more of music in total. And it's also extremely difficult music. There's not a moment where you can just say, okay, I can rest here. So we all stay in shape in our various ways physically, and then we have been building up our stamina mentally to play all of these back-to-back by doing all Beethoven concerts and performing each of the works consistently through several months and then going on to the next one. So
we're going to hear music from the harp quartet of Beethoven. As I look around, I don't see a harp.
This quartet actually takes its name from the first movement, where there's extensive use of pizzicato, which was kind of radical for the day and inspired a lot of other composers subsequently. But we're going to play for you the second movement today, which we feel is one of the most beautiful slow movements that Beethoven wrote.
All right, if you'll settle in, we'll take a listen. This is the second movement from one of Beethoven's middle quartets, the harp quartet, also in E-flat, Opus 74, the Calidore String Quartet, live on WQXR. Second movement from Beethoven's Harp Quartet, performed by the Calidore String Quartet, live here in the green space. Jeffrey Myers, Ryan Meehan, violin, Jeremy Barry, viola, and Estelle Choi, cello. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being here tonight. The Calidore Quartet will be performing all over the United States and Canada and Europe this fall. But if you want to see them right here in New York City, mark your calendars at Lincoln Center's Rose Studio on November 14th. For those of you just joining us here on the radio and on Facebook via live stream, welcome. Welcome to our concert tonight. We're coming to you live from the Green Space here in Lower Manhattan. I'm Elliott Forrest. The next performers on our Evening of Fall previews from WQXR are representing an orchestra that is just shy of 100 years old. The New Jersey Symphony Orchestra has distinguished history and is truly a state orchestra, performing in a variety of venues. This makes them very unusual, and it's a really great idea. They perform throughout New Jersey, not just in one venue, but in Newark and Princeton and Red Bank and several other locations throughout the Garden State. And staying true to the Garden State, they also promote and commission works from New Jersey composers. Here to represent the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra are two musicians from the wind section. Please welcome principal flute player Bart Feller and principal bassoonist Robert Wagner, who will play works by Bozza and Villalobos. Bart Feller is a man about town. In addition to his principal position with the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, he also performs with the New York City Opera and Santa Fe Opera Orchestra and teaches at Juilliard. Principal bassoonist Robert Wagner, whom you know from his many movie roles and his turbulent marriage to Natalie Wood. Wait, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong card here. This Robert Wagner has been with the New Jersey Symphony since 1979, and he teaches at Princeton. They're doing two pieces for us. We'll start with selections from the French composer Eugène Bozza's work, Contrasts for Flute and Bassoon, members of the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, live in the green space on WQXR. Two movements from Eugene Boza's Contrast for Flute and Bassoon, performed by Bart Feller and Robert Wagner, both members of the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra. Big congratulations first to you, Bob. 40 years with the New Jersey Symphony. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
There's a special work this season to commemorate that. Tell us about that.
Sure. I really was surprised for the first time in 40 years when I was approached by our music director, Shen Zhang, and asked to play a concerto. And that's always nice. I've played a few in my years over the last 4 decades. But the composer chosen was Christopher Rouse, who was a composer I've admired for a long time. And the fact that he finally deigned to write a bassoon concerto. He had already written the other 3 woodwind concertos and many other concerti, but he finally got around to the bassoon concerto, and it's just a wonderful piece. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to perform it with my colleagues in the New Jersey Symphony, as well as so many just for the bassoonists around the world that we have another concerto. It's really exciting.
Great. And we want to hear a little more about the season. Do you want to tell us about that, Bart? Tell us what's coming up this season that you're excited about.
Absolutely. We've got a lot that's really, that I'm very much looking forward to. Certain staples like Dvorak 8th Symphony, Prokofiev Romeo and Juliet, a collaboration with the young singers at the Metropolitan Opera to do an evening of the music of Don Giovanni. Also, Holst the Planets to open our season and make a big noise next month.
And that opening is also, you've got some film stuff that goes along with that, right?
Absolutely. There'll be some NASA images projected on the back wall while we play the planets. Just to remind people that those planets are real and do exist.
They do. And Pluto doesn't get a movement, though.
He does not. He's been nixed out. For people who haven't seen her yet, our music director, Shen Zhang, is just a dynamo. She is just electricity personified. She gets the orchestra sounding great. We're having an amazing time with her, and it's absolutely worth checking out because there's just nothing like live performance.
Absolutely. And you're going to play one more piece for us. What are we going to hear?
This is the first movement of the Bachianas Brasileiras No. 6. This is Villa-Lobos. He created a mashup back in the day before they used the word mashup between the feeling of Bach, with which the movement opens and closes, and then some of his crazy Brazilian stuff in the middle. It's as if Bach takes a holiday and goes to South America and stuff happens.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. The music of Hector Villa-Lobos from Bachianas Brasileiras, Bart Feller, Robert Wagner from the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, live from the Green Space from WQXR. first movement from Hector Villa-Lobos's Bachianis Brasileiras number 6, representing the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, principal flutist Bart Feller, bassoonist Robert Wagner. Thank you both for being here tonight. Thank you. That was terrific. You can check out New Jersey Symphony's complete season at njsymphony.org. If I were to tell you our next performer is a composer and a pianist and a violinist, you might imagine decades of training, but Alma Deutscher was born in 2005. Here, I'm going to do the math here. I was told there'd be no math, but that makes her 14. Alma started playing piano at the age of 2, the violin at the age of 3. Her full-length opera, Cinderella, that she wrote, was written between the ages of 8 and 12. Conductor Zubin Mehta says she is one of the greatest musical talents today. You may have seen her profile, the profile about Alma on 60 Minutes. As part of our fall preview, we are highlighting Alma's Carnegie Hall debut, which will take place on December 12th. It's a concert featuring her own compositions. Please welcome Alma Deutscher. Joining her tonight will be violist Jordan Bach, recently featured on WQXR's Midday Masterpiece, and Ji-Young Lee, a New York City collaborative pianist who's also recently returned from teaching in Kenya. We're going to hear something from your opera. This is called Up in the Sky from your opera Cinderella. Please welcome the music of Alma Deutscher, live in the green space here on WQXR. Called Up in the Sky by Alma Deutscher from her opera Cinderella. Thank you so much, Jordan Bach and Jung-Yin Lee. Thank you so much for joining us. Alma, again, will be making her Carnegie Hall debut on December 12th. She has a new recording on Sony called From My Book of Melodies. Okay, Alma joins me now here on stage, and I have so many questions. So let's start with this. I saw the 60 Minutes piece in which you were given 4 notes, thought about it for a while, and then improvised a piece that sounded Baroque, could be Mozart, something like that. Is there a difference for you between improvisation and composition?
Improvising is, in a way, very fun. It's the fun bit of the composing. I sometimes have this thing which is, I call an improvising mood, where I just sit down at the piano and the melodies pour out of my fingertips and I can't control them. That's the fun bit. And then afterwards, so after I've improvised lots of melodies, then I would have to sit down and try and develop these melodies and continue them into proper pieces, and then do variations on them or sometimes orchestrate them, and that's more difficult, and that's more, I have to tell myself, now I have to sit down and finish this.
We said at the beginning you started playing piano at 2 and maybe the next year starting violin. Was there a moment when you realized playing other people's music was not enough and that you had these other notes, these other melodies in your head?
Well, ever since I was 4, I had melodies in my head, I had ideas in my head, and I just played them down on the piano. And I also had this imaginary country called Transylvanian. And when I had lots of imaginary composers there, which I invented, so Shell and Flara and Green Silk and Blue Gold, and when people ask me, well, what are you playing? I'd say, these are songs from Transylvanian, my imaginary country.
I have more questions now. You are making your Carnegie Hall debut. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm so excited, really. It's like my dream come true. It's incredible. I'm going to play my violin concerto and my piano concerto, and also highlights from my opera, Cinderella. And I'm just so much looking forward to it. I went today to see the outside of Carnegie. But I'm so excited and I can't wait.
They didn't let you in?
No, well, I just went to see outside,
I'd ask you how do you get to Carnegie Hall, but I think you know already. We're going to hear a couple of pieces that you wrote. It's off the new album From My Book of Melodies, The Chase and I Think of You. Anything we should know about those?
Well, The Chase is a piece that I composed especially for the album. And as I was looking for a melody for age 11, because I didn't say the album for the album, I chose one melody from each year of my life, from 4 to 14. And so as I was looking for a melody for age 11, I was looking in my notebook of melodies, and I came across this melody, which I thought was quite nice, and I'd written it down when I was 11, but I'd forgotten about it. And so I took that and I very quickly wrote a piece on it. And actually, you are almost the first people to hear this piece. I played it in a children's hospital in Indianapolis. But except for that, I've never played it in public. So this is you'll be the first people to hear it.
All right, if you want to settle in, we're going to hear you play. Thank you so much, and best of luck. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome. I am so not worried about the future of classical music. Alma Deutscher, live from WQXR. 14-year-old pianist, violinist, composer Alma Deutscher playing her own music. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to keep an eye on you. Take care. Her father is here tonight. You done good. Elliott, Forrest with you here live in the green space on WQXR. Our fall season continues with one of our favorite performers. The Chicago Reader has said this about Jennifer Koh, that she's that rare rising star in classical music with a fluency in both standard repertoire and new music, and that's exactly what she's brought with us for us tonight. If you name a leading orchestra or conductor, there's a good chance violinist Jennifer Koh has worked with them. Her prizes include top honors in the Tchaikovsky competition and the Avery Fisher Career Grant. She has recorded 13 CDs and has had more than 70 pieces of music written for her. She'll be appearing in New York this October 24th at the Miller Theater at Columbia, where she'll perform a new work written for her by composer Vijay Iyer. We will hear her now play some solo violin of Bach, and then we'll meet a very special New York composer who's also written for Jennifer. But first, please welcome violinist Jennifer Koh. Jennifer Koh and the music of Bach here on WQXR, live from the Green Space. Tell us exactly what we just heard.
That was the last two movements of the Bach C major sonata.
My fingers hurt just watching.
So do mine.
So do yours. You've got here. Let's shift over just a little bit. Give them some room. You have a series called Bach and Beyond. Tell us about that.
Bach and Beyond was a series of commissions of composers writing a conversation with Bach, and actually our surprise composer, Missy Mazzoli, wrote a piece to be in musical conversation with the Bach chaconne. And it's only later that she actually told me that it was incredibly intimidating to do that, and I feel really badly. I'm sorry, Missy. Yeah, so that was one of the pieces, and I also commissioned John Harbison. I did some Berio, Bartok, Sariaho, and I'm totally blanking on the other.
And other composers. We're going to bring Missy out in just a moment, but also the Limitless project. Tell us about that.
Limitless is about bringing composers and performers together. I think it was amazing to work with these incredible composers and human beings who just happen to be women and people of color. I think especially in the society that we're living in right now, it's important to bring forward voices and stories that haven't necessarily been heard before. And I think in this setup of doing duos, you kind of are able to come into this special place of kind of vulnerability together. an emotional catharsis together. So you're really taking this incredible journey together.
Well, let's meet your collaborator. Time Out New York calls Missy Mazzoli Brooklyn's post-millennial Mozart. Her work is heard from rock clubs to opera houses. Her opera Breaking the Waves was called one of the best 21st century operas yet produced by Opera News. She's currently in her second year as composer in residence with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and we're thrilled she was available tonight to join us. Please welcome composer Missy Mazzoli. So for those who are listening on the radio, I have a violinist to my right and a composer and some electronic equipment to my left. Why don't you tell us about the piece we're going to hear?
Sure. So the piece we're going to hear is called Vespers for Violin. I composed it in 2014, and it's about a 5-minute work for violin and electronics. And since I'm here, I'm going to actually be manipulating the electronics live in response to what Jenny is playing.
So is there anything special you want to tell us about what you have here, or should it just be magic?
Oh, it's going to be magic, for sure. That goes without saying. But I will say that I wrote it, again, like I said, in 2014. I was writing a series of pieces based on my interpretation of the Vespers sunset prayer service. So this is just sort of, it tried to evoke that sort of time of day, that sort of magical time. And I'm going to be manipulating the effects. You'll hear voices, which are actually members of the group Roomful of Teeth, who are like a sort of New York staple of amazing vocal music.
Great performers, great vocalists.
The best. And so you'll hear them, and I'm going to be bringing in, fading in their voices too.
All right, great. Well, let's hear it. It's the Vespers, performed by Jennifer Koh, playing an amplified violin, and composer Missy Mazzoli. Do I understand it right that the recording of this was nominated for a Grammy as well? Congratulations on that. Say it again.
It's available on Limitless, the CD that was just released.
Okay, awesome, great. All right, here they are live in the green space. I'm going to get past all the wires from WQXR. just great. Terrific. Jennifer Koh. It's called Vespers, along with composer and electronics from Missy Mazzoli. Thank you both for joining us tonight. That was terrific. Thank you so much. Jennifer Koh will be at the Miller Theater at Columbia October 24th with pianist Vijay Iyer and the Knights. I don't know about you, but I thought the ambulance that went by was part of the show, was part of the music. That's what I love, being here on the street level in the green space here at WQXR. Our final guest for this evening of New York City Fall Previews has been described as having a voice the way velvet feels. Elizabeth DeShong has performed in opera houses throughout the world and sung with some of the world's best orchestras, including the Cleveland Orchestra, Chicago, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, the Dallas Symphonies. Overseas, she's performed with the English National Opera, the Vienna State, and the Royal Scottish National Opera, among others. Mezzo-soprano Elizabeth DeShong will be singing the role of Suzuki in Madame Butterfly at the Metropolitan Opera this fall. We'll hear more about her season in a few moments, but first we will hear two arias, one from Handel's Semele and another from Richard Strauss's Ariadne auf Naxos, along with pianist Bradley Moore. Please welcome mezzo-soprano Elizabeth DeShong. Arias by Richard Strauss and Handel, performed by a force of nature, Elizabeth DeShong, live in the green space here along with Bradley Moore. Thank you again for joining us here. You'll be doing Madame Butterfly again. This is a bit of a signature role for you, right?
It has kind of become that. I've sort of fallen in love with her. I mean, it may seem a strange next step having sung Arsace in Semiramidi at the Met last season, but I love her. She feels like a part of me, and I love the relationship that she has with Butterfly and how it's really the truest account of love on that stage every night. And that's fun to kind of speak your loudest in the silences.
Do you change it up a little bit if you do a role a lot? Do you find yourself changing over time?
I mean, it sounds sort of actor school, but your inner monologue changes constantly. I mean, your eyes are affixed to Butterfly from the moment she steps on stage until the very last seconds. And whatever she does, it turns your gut in a different way every single time. And because she speaks so loudly with just her presence, every moment has to be filled in with a meaningful sense. So it does change every night, every time.
You've got a lot of other things coming up, an exciting debut in Melbourne with Hansel and Gretel. Are you Hansel or Gretel?
I'm Hansel. I'm Hansel. I'm Hansel. that's a variety. Like tonight with my repertoire, I mean, my season is full of variety, and that's something I like. I do on purpose. I think I'd get bored with doing just sort of one genre, one thing all the time, and no, it's a great change from Suzuki to Hensel.
What else is coming up for you?
Then I'll join Sandra Radvanovsky and Peak Dom at Lyric Opera of Chicago. We joined together for Norma a couple seasons ago, so it'll be nice to be back together. And then a premiere of, a new production of Bianca e Faliero, and I'll be Faliero in Frankfurt. Rounds out an interesting season.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for being here. We do have one more song. In a way, it kind of needs no introduction, right? I think you'll know it. Elizabeth DeShong, a classic of Rodgers and Hammerstein, here from WQXR. Elizabeth DeShong, pianist Bradley Moore, climb every mountain from The Sound of Music. Thank you so much for being here. Elizabeth will be performing at the Met in Madame Butterfly. Join me in thanking all the performers. What a journey it's been tonight. The Calidore String Quartet, Bart Feller, Robert Wagner from the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, Alma Deutscher, Jordan Bach and Julian Lee, Jennifer Koh, Missy, Mazzoli, and Bradley Moore along here with Elizabeth DeShong. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here tonight as well. Thank you for coming to the Green Space. Thank you for listening on the radio. Thank you for watching on Facebook. I'm Elliott Forrest. I'm going to throw it back to our WQXR studio and my colleague, Terrence McKnight, who will accompany you throughout the rest of the evening here on WQXR. Good night, everybody.